Hello, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I am Felicia Martin, the Vice President of the NCAA Eligibility Center, and also Interim Senior Vice President of Inclusion, Education, and Community Engagement. Throughout my career, I've made decisions that are student-athlete centric. I've always been a believer in the power of education, the importance of integrity, and opening the doors of opportunity when it comes to professional endeavors. Leaders must educate themselves through programs, strategic relationships, and career experiences. As a woman of color, I've found that the right exposure and strategic networking can be instrumental in progressing to executive level leadership positions. We've created the NCAA Leadership Collective to provide exposure for our industry's most talented minority administrators and coaches. The NCAA Leadership Collective is a database that houses career profiles of ethnic minorities who are ready to step into major leadership roles. Qualified athletic administrators and coaches can create their professional profile in the collective and keep it up to date as they progress throughout their careers. Presidents, chancellors, conference commissioners, and athletic directors have access to each profile in the collective, so they can build a comprehensive list of candidates for opportunities within their respective organizations. I encourage people to visit ncaa.org/leadership-development to get more details on the NCAA Leadership Collective. This is an incredible resource for our industry. Be well.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, and review 1Q wherever you listen to podcasts. Our guest today is Dr. Brian Russo. Brian is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Sport Administration and Student Athlete Development at Illinois. Greetings, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to be on campus today. It's a wonderful campus. A lot of things are happening. There are a lot of facilities being built. A lot of things have been built since the current athletics director, Josh Whitman, got here. So you've been here since 2018, right? 3 or 4 years. Been in college athletics since 2011, but in higher education since 2005, roughly 17 or some odd years. You started off working in academics, program development for students, I guess, understanding that the path was to get into college athletics. Tell us a little bit about that when you started off in your professional career.
Yeah, that's correct. It was very intentional how I began the journey, and there are a lot of entry points into college athletics, and I chose one that started on the academic side. I truly wanted to understand the academic experience of students. I wanted to understand how a college work, how governance systems work, how colleges in general and programs develop curriculum and supported students. And so on the academic side, spent a lot of time working with students in different colleges at my previous institution, kind of rose through the ranks on the academic advising world, and was able to be involved in some leadership opportunities before transitioning over across campus into the athletic world.
Right. Curriculum development, how you develop curriculum for students, and how that ties into student success, how they learn, et cetera. That is interesting. That sounds like bigger dreams than student athlete development, right?
I mean, this is impacting the young men and women that wear our uniforms is the biggest dream out there. So I think it's something that fits in nicely to what we do, because you think about this from the athletic viewpoint of what we're doing. And one of my mentors at previous institution always used the phrase that we may not be the most important thing that's happening on campus, but we're the most visible.
Right.
And so I think about that piece in terms of how we operate in athletics and how we lead and develop young people. And you come back to the core academic component and the academic experience. That's the common ground. Our athletic experiences are going to change from course to course, from place to place, from division to division. But truly at the core, that academic experience, the young men and women that wear our uniforms, they're walking out with degrees that are meaningful. They're walking out with experiences that are preparing them for life after their sport is done. And so that foundation, that understanding that piece, I think helps me day to day as I work with coaches and student athletes.
At some point, you went and got the PhD. Talk to me a little bit about that aspect, the thinking behind it, what you specifically studied, and where you hope it will take you as you move forward.
This is certainly one of the benefits of working in higher ed, is that need to take advantage. If the institution has the opportunity and allows you to take courses and earn degrees, you might as well do it. And so I think that was my mindset at the time in starting. It was truly, I'm going to take a couple of classes in a sociological sport perspective and learn a little bit more about kind of sport development and understand some of those pieces. And then one class led to another class, which led to another class, a couple of full-time semesters, a dissertation, and then boom, you're done. Just like that. It was like nothing, right? Just a long, that's right, Russell, a long book report and some hours spent. But the area that I studied, the curriculum I studied was, honestly, it was after a leader that impacted me. During my undergrad experience, I had a conversation with a guy by the name of Jim Phillips, who, he turned out to have a pretty nice career and is still having a pretty nice career. And a conversation with him sent me to the University of Tennessee to a very specific graduate program. And then his dissertation is one that I mirrored a lot of what I did. And so I found a dissertation in an interest area looking at student athlete satisfaction and looking at the satisfaction of experiences. And I thought, all right, how can I take that piece and then couple satisfaction and how their athletic experience is going with an academic experience? And so, a lot of times we'll sit and this is back in the academic counselor days, we'd sit in coaching staff meetings and realistically, if someone was having a bad week in the classroom, it was probably impacting them on the court. It was probably impacting them on the field. And so all of those pieces are tied together in the holistic experience of our student athletes and understanding, having better data to understand those experiences and how the satisfaction of an athletic and academic experience combined. It made it easy to write a dissertation on it because it was what I was living every day in the working world. And so finding something that I was passionate about, and for those out there in the dissertation stages, the biggest key is find something that you're passionate about. Find something that you can write about that'll impact what you're doing. You're not going to, unless you're going the faculty route, the dissertation is going to be a place in time where something is done. And I think truly that's how I approached it, and the interest level that impacted and helped with the job performance as well.
Right. You think about some of the things you just said there, the data in terms of the student athlete experience, the student athlete academic experience. True leaders are always evaluating what they're doing, how they're doing, how the people around them are doing. And the question I always have for people who work in the area that you've come up in is evaluating the success and explaining the success that you have in your area to those who you report to. Talk to me a little bit about that in terms of what you did at Tennessee, what you're doing here. You put together staff where everybody knows the value of what you're doing, but you want to explain that value to everybody around you. You understand that the students, athletes probably know what it is, and there's some semblance of the athletic director knows what it is, right? There's a bullet point there where he or she knows how important it is. So talk to me about the explaining the value, specifically if you talk about outcomes, right? And if there is data to back that value up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's easy to say from the academic side, right? We're looking at metrics on the academic side. You're looking at academic progress rate. You're looking at graduation rates. You're looking at GPAs. There are numbers behind it. And so it's easy for an academic director to show proof in what's happening. Now, the reality is that this profession, similar to coaching, similar to anything in athletics, is that, the frustrating piece of the business is that you can have a great plan and you can have a great strategy and you can be aligned strategically. You can provide all the support possible, but at the end of the day, student athlete has to go out and perform. In every aspect of that student athlete's life, they have to go out and perform. And then you're judged on the outcomes that are truly beyond your control. And so framing it and thinking about how you position them for success, regardless of what the outcome and the data actually say at the end, that positioning them for success is going to be the important piece. And then having some candid conversations when it doesn't go well, I think adds a lot to be able to develop the staff and adds a lot to be able to build credibility in what you're doing. And so, for the academic side, that piece is easy. For the student athlete development side, when we're thinking about just the holistic development of student athletes, everything from helping with identity development and thinking about how they fit into this world to the end goal of career development and job placement and preparing them for life after sport. I think our national group, our student athlete development practitioners, are developing metrics around that. Right now, it's a narrative. It's a narrative of selling how well you're doing and showing. Certainly, there are job placement rates and pieces that you can look at, but developing a narrative no different than our development staff is out there selling the vision of Illinois athletics. we should be selling the vision of how we develop student athletes and what that holistic development looks like and how they're meeting our mission and how we are preparing them for the day that the ball stops bouncing, the day that they stop swimming. All of those pieces that go into developing them to be successful in life after sport, we have to tell the narrative of how that happens.
Right. Telling that story. I imagine, I've had conversations with Anton Goff, Eric Wood, even David Harris from Northern Iowa. And some of those conversations, they talked about that. The narrative of student athlete development, what we're doing, how we help them get to where they want to go, how we develop them so that they can go beyond college athletics. And you start having those conversations in development, right? And telling those stories to people who want to give money to what you're doing there. And I don't know how much that happens across college athletics because I'm not necessarily on campus, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on that to where, hey, let's tell the story of what we're doing here, right? Beyond the field could be beneficial to a lot of college athletics departments around the country. And I imagine some are doing it now, but the people I've talked to who are in the chair now have talked about that crossover. So tell me a little bit about your philosophy there and your thoughts on that aspect.
Yeah, no question. That's it's something that's critical because we're selling a product. We're getting support for our 500 student athletes that are wearing our uniforms, and the reality is that all 500 of those student athletes, regardless of sport, have an individual, unique story. And you're seeing some of this come out in name, image, likeness. You're seeing them be able to develop individual brands that are not connected directly to Illinois athletics. You're seeing them develop some of their own brands. And so we have the obligation to tell our shareholders what's going on in their lives. We have the obligation to tell our shareholders how great they are. Because as you think about what we're doing and why we're doing it for these 18 to 22-year-olds. And we're in it to make sure that they have the ability to perform and they have the ability to win and they have the ability to graduate and succeed. And so telling the story allows us to provide the resources to put them in a position to have that success. And so no doubt, I think the best friend to a development officer is someone who can tell a good narrative. Because our development staffs, both here and elsewhere, development staffs need that information. There are a lot of folks out there, supporters of higher ed, supporters of college athletics, who don't want to put a name on a building. They want to impact people. And so we have the ability and the obligation to make sure they understand who our people are, because the reality is we've got some incredible young men and women across the country in college athletics doing great things, making impacts, and we have to shine a light on that.
Right.
To make sure that everybody understands what they're out there doing.
Right. And that's important. The narrative. What we're doing, what they're doing, and how we can help them do what they do, especially now that NIL has come across. And I'll touch on that shortly, but I do want to ask you a question about leadership, right? You have a staff. You also have some sports administration duties. Talk to me about your leadership philosophy relative to staff, relative to coaches, and relative to what you try to impart in the student athletes you've mentored over the years.
I have the pleasure of serving as a sport administrator for 5 of our sports. I oversee our men's basketball program, our men's and women's golf programs, our women's soccer program, and our baseball program. Then I also I lead our student athlete development unit, led by Liz Reyes and her group, who truly is working day to day to impact the lives of our student athletes. And leading that diversity of thought and leading that diverse group, from head coaches to assistant coaches to ops directors to student athlete development coordinators. It's a span on a continuum of folks that are at different stages in their careers. But I think that you can effectively lead those groups of people and impact them where they are. And so realistically, I think I approach it with a philosophy of being very candid, but also being very caring, and understanding that you can have candid conversations. And certainly Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor, is a great starting point. But you can have these candid conversations and also have a caring mentality of understanding that, when they walk in, it's not business all the time, because we work too hard and too many hours and too long in the days and nights to not understand each other and understand that we're all in this for the same process. So when you have that candid care and it's built on a foundation of trust, I think you're able to lead and able to have some good conversations to put people in a position where then they can impact and their leadership permeates that of the student athletes. And that's the biggest change and the biggest role in moving through the hierarchy that is higher education and the hierarchy of athletic administration, is that you move from impacting student athletes when you're in the academic student athlete development space to impacting staff. But then you hope that staff impact is greater on others. And so, I approach it from a standpoint of being able to have candid conversations, being able to put the right people around the table, and then, candidly, when you hire good people, your role in leading them is easy.
I wonder about, as you progress in your career and you have to lead people now, you're leading coaches who have their opinions and their desires to be successful, what they want. I wonder about, you mentioned candid conversations. I wonder about tough decisions, I want to give you tell me what you need to be successful and I'll try my best to make that happen for you. But there are times when I can't make it happen. Mm-hmm. So tell me about those type of either decisions you have to make or discussions you've made with people in terms of as your leadership and responsibilities grow in college athletics.
It's something that certainly we don't shy away from. I think this is where we're in a position where we have a great mentor being led by Josh Whitman, who's right. One of the best I've seen at bringing people around the table and having tough conversations and getting us aligned as we walk out that door. And so learning from him on the job the last 3 years has been something that has been incredibly beneficial to my development. And really, I think it starts with the base of having credibility. If you have credibility and coaches understand that you're working day in, day out to find answers, or you're working day in, day out to find solutions, they understand that there are times that the answer is going to be no. But when you've worked hard to develop the relationships and you've developed credibility and you're toe-to-toe fighting to make sure that they have what they need to win, to put students in a position to have success, the no's are tougher and easier, both. They're tougher because, well, sometimes you got to land on that. You can't always find the solution because the solution isn't always going to be a direction you're going to go. But they're easier because if coaches and staff know that you're out there fighting for them, it's easier to have the conversations and walk away feeling good about the direction. And so I think this is something that, as I started at Illinois in academics and student athlete development, and then moved into more administrative role and into the sport administration world, I think a lot of that background the way I was able to make that transition is because I wasn't afraid to have those tough conversations. I wasn't afraid to step out and make sure that coaches understood that, in the academic world and student athlete development world, we want to win as badly as everyone else. And we want to win the right way. And we want to make sure that our student athletes are graduating. We want to make sure they're having great experiences. But ultimately, when we win, everybody wins. Our student athletes have better experiences across the board. The number one impact on student athletes and their experiences is winning. When you have success, college is a lot more fun. When you have success, your coaches have a lot more fun. Your staff has a lot more fun. And so I don't think we shy away from it. That's what I've loved about my time at Illinois and working with Josh, is that we don't shy away from the fact that we're trying to win at absolutely every single thing that we're doing. Now, we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do it the Illinois way, and we're going to find ways to unify, develop, inspire, and achieve. We're going to hit our mission on those 4 words, but we're going to win. And I think that's something that having that mindset made it easy for me to transition over to work directly with coaches in more of a leadership capacity, because that mindset works in all areas of athletics.
Right, yeah, which is important. Thinking about NIL. I recently heard about something. There's a professor at Harvard named Frances Frye. She talked about exhaustive mediocrity, right? And it's like if everybody in the organization they're all great people and good at what they do, but everybody's working as hard as they can, but the output is mediocre. The output is not the best. Sometimes that comes from not identifying the strategic trade-offs of the people in the organization. Like, you want me to continue to operate at 110% as we think about going in the future and doing new things, but what are we willing to give up? Because I can only have so many bullet points in my brain to operate on, give each one of those bullet points enough attention so that they can come out great. NIL is something that is new to the plate for all of us across college athletics. And I wonder about your approach to it, being that you're responsible for it here at Illinois. Talk to me about that. And is there a trade-off? I don't even know if that's a conversation in college athletics, right? In sports in general, like, you keep doing at a high level no matter what comes on your plate. So talk to me a little bit about that in terms of your perspective and what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's real. Exhaustive mediocrity. It's it's the something that we talk about is the bedfellow to success is complacency, and mediocrity fits along in that as well. If you're doing too much, how can you really be great at one thing? And so this is a moment in time in college athletics that if we aren't having conversations about where the inflection point is to change some of what we're doing, we're missing the boat. And so I think that's something that I hope is happening at other places, but it's something that's definitely happening here. We came off of a 2-day retreat where we sat around the room and truly talked about what does the future look like as we're on the precipice of change here. What does it look like, and where do we need to value engineer some of the strategic priorities of how we align our resources and integrate our people and to make sure that they have what they need to be successful without just continuing to add staff. Because when you continue to add headcount, you're just putting a Band-Aid on a situation of college athletics in a changing environment while people are morphing, jobs have to morph as well. And so I think you'll see the great leaders come out of this point in time in college athletics making some major moves and making some major changes. And when you think about NIL is here. We've embraced it. That's something that I've been excited about is having the opportunity to lead our group. I'm certainly not the smartest in the room and the most well-versed on everything NIL, but I pound the gavel and gather the meetings while others really provide great direction. And as you look at this from a strategic priority, I think you have to rethink some of what's happening in college athletics and where your resources go and where your head count goes and what you truly need. And so the next piece, I think, in this name, image, likeness world is going to be the hybrid position, because when you think about what you need in someone who can truly quarterback the NIL experience, you need somebody who understands legal terms. You need somebody who understands branding and brand development. You need somebody who understands contracts. You need somebody who understands social media. You have this person that truly is a jack of all trades. And I think that speaks more toward where we're going, where rather than a very, very narrow driven expert, you've got more folks around the table that have broad experiences. And I think that's important as you think about how you retool what you're doing in college athletics as a department. You're going to have to make some bold moves and some drastic changes to be able to stay on the cutting edge and truly come out of this direction, this moment of time in college athletics ahead and toward the right direction.
Right, those strategic trade-offs. What's interesting about what you said is, years ago, you may have had an SID and an athletics director, and that was your whole staff, right? And then the coaches. So everybody had to do a little bit of everything. And that's kind of where you're going now. It's like you got to know a little bit about a lot in order to be able to be in a position, in a hybrid position that can handle a number of different things that are coming along in college athletics. And if we don't want to just keep adding to the head count. Thinking about leadership as your career progresses, thinking about, we mentioned development, we mentioned student athlete development, we mentioned sports administration. You become responsible in terms of leadership, in terms of leading more people, coaches, student athletes, at some point, possibly in your future, an organization, a department. I wonder, as you gather leadership styles and philosophies and you work with people, some people great, some people may not be great, who knows, right? Josh, growing to be one of the elephants in the profession. Where do you see your philosophy going, right? You sound like you're a reader. You mentioned a couple of books so far in terms of developing your own leadership philosophy based on your experiences, what you've read, and your thought process going to the future.
I think first and foremost, staying student-centered. And realistically, I think this is what has been so great for some of us in the profession that have come up through the academics and student athlete development ranks. You're seeing some of those folks that have come up that way sit in the big chair. And you think about what Dr. Eric Wood is doing and how he came through the student athlete development world and is now leading a department and having success. And you think about folks even, from Illinois, we saw Keiko Price leave Illinois and become the AD down at Emory. And so you're seeing these folks that have come up through the internal side. And that's exciting for some of us because realistically, if you're coming up the internal side, you're understanding the student-athlete experience. And at the core of your decision-making should be the student-athlete experience. And so I hope that piece never leaves me. And I think it'll be to be grounded in a philosophy that is student-centered, but understands the competitive urgency of what's required to win, understands the resources that are required to win. When you package those things together, I think it makes it puts you in a position to have the ability to effectively lead others. Right. And you come back to what are the core values of the institution. And this, as you see folks transition, and you see some folks that are more transient across college athletics. And I look that there are inflection points in each person's career where you have to strategically align yourself with an organization and, candidly, a leader who you believe in and who you believe can develop you and get you to the next level. And I think sometimes we get complacent and we look at institutions or job titles because they look sexy, or because this institution on the front of the jersey, gosh, that's got to be a great place. But every young person who's rising through the ranks has to look at the actual people and the leaders, because those are the folks that you're going to learn your philosophy from. Those are the folks that you're going to be in a room with, truly understanding a decision-making process and developing with. And so you have to make strategic decisions around people rather than places. And so I think that's something that I've been kind of lucked into a couple of times, being able to be in a position where, you mentioned Josh Whitman being one of the elephants in college athletics. Still think he's one of the hidden gems, and he's not hidden as much as he used to be. But
he's on the way.
He's on the way. There's no doubt. I lucked into being able to sit around a room and watch him lead and learn from him as he leads. And so I hope that when you stay student-centered and you fight for the right things and you surround yourself and align yourself with people that also believe in those same core values, that you put yourself in a position to have incredible success and ultimately impact hundreds, thousands of student athletes that come through your walls and wear your uniforms.
All right. Excellent. Well, Brian, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Ty, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
That was Dr. Brian Russell. He is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Sport Administration and Student Athlete Development at University of Illinois. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.